The Texas justice system is messy, so let's break it down. You're listening to So You Got Arrested, the podcast that tells you what really happens after an arrest. Hosted by BRCK criminal defense attorneys, we talk to the people who've lived it, worked in it, and been shaped by it. Whether you're facing charges or just want to understand your rights, your options, and the smart moves that could change everything, we've got your back.
This is So You Got Arrested, a BRCK criminal defense podcast. I'm your host, Steve Barrera. I'm here with Veronica Legarreta. Thank you for coming on and joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, Ms. Legarreta is a candidate for the Bexar County District Attorney's office. And so we've been doing a thing lately where we've been bringing on candidates. We've brought on judicial candidates and other candidates for DA to kind of get to know them a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I know previously you guys have had debates, but in those debates, you only get to talk for about a minute or a minute and a half.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of use this half hour to tell people about yourself.
So. No, I appreciate it. You know, you're right. In the debates, we're given about a minute. We get thrown a question, and then we have to say everything we have to say in 1 minute.
On a complicated issue.
Yeah, which I'm like, there's so much more, but right. Here's my 2 cents.
Right, exactly. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
I am originally from El Paso, Texas.
Oh, okay.
My dad is a retired federal agent, and so we moved quite a bit. We went from El Paso to Brownsville, Texas, to Sacramento, California, back to El Paso, to Mexico City, where we were diplomats. Then I went to UT Austin for undergrad, and I came to San Antonio for law school and ended up staying.
So bilingual?
Bilingual,
awesome.
Yes.
So UT Austin, my son is there now. He's a
Love
sophomore.
Hook 'em horns.
There you go. What did you study while you were there?
I honestly am an acting major.
Really?
Yes. So
that is awesome.
When I was younger, I was super shy. I mean, I couldn't even order my own meal at a restaurant. And after high school, I don't know what happened, but I was like, I want to be an actor. Right. So I went into the drama program.
Sure.
I didn't tell my parents because, you know, a Hispanic mom, I probably could have been the first woman pope before I was going to be an actor. Right. So I went into it. I did a lot of improv comedy, and it really helped me come out of my shell.
Yeah.
You know, and so now, you know, sometimes my sisters tell me, well, we can't shut you up now, right?
There you go. There you go. So you probably were there a little bit before Professor McConaughey was in the acting department.
Yes, before. But I did see him at the football games.
Oh, yeah, yes. Of course. He's always on the sideline.
Yeah, you know, back then you could smoke in the stadiums, and he was always with his cigar in the stand. So
yeah. So while you're in undergrad, is that when you decided, hey, I think I might want to go to law school? Or?
So in high school, I originally wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
I actually wanted to be a divorce attorney.
Oh,
I didn't know anything about law, but that's
why a divorce attorney?
I have no idea. I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to represent these women, and I'm going to take all the money. I didn't know very much about the law. Then I went into acting, and then shortly after that, I did some improv comedy down in Austin.
Wow.
Right, and I just had decided, you know, I'm not going to move to LA. I'm not going to move to New York.
Now the Austin comedy scene is huge.
It is, you know. I mean, maybe I left a little too late.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I tell my sisters, like, if this law thing doesn't work out, I'm going back to the stage, right? But I kind of stopped, and I was like, you know what? I want to be a lawyer. That's really what I wanted to do. Right. So I went to law school.
Where'd you go to law school?
St. Mary's.
Okay, here in San Antonio.
And I was actually an oxymoron. It's a comedy troupe here in San
I'm
Antonio.
aware.
I performed with them throughout law school.
That's awesome. Were they at the Woodlawn Theater?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Woodlawn Theater. We have the Loudmouth, or Laugh Out Loud.
Yeah,
Loudmouth.
LOL.
Yes.
Yeah.
Theater. We performed there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you did that during law school?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And then after law, I was in mock trial. And mock trial is actually very important to me because it taught me trial advocacy.
Right.
Right. And I met a gentleman by the name of Ken Bell, and he was my mock trial partner. So when I got out of law school, he was already working at the DA's office because he was an intern. And I had tried my hand at civil litigation. At the time, I was like, this is not for me.
Boring.
Right? Boring.
Very boring.
So Ken Bell spoke with, at the time, Judge Reed.
Okay.
And they reached out to me to apply to the district attorney's office.
So let me ask you this, because I, growing up was for better or worse, what people might call a theater kid. But I did find that, improvisation, things like that, did translate to skills when you're in court. Have you found that to be true?
100%. When you are picking a jury, a lot of people don't understand this, but we kind of script it. We have kind of like a bulletin points of what we want, but everything is changing, right? It's evolving. When you're questioning witnesses, sometimes they say stuff you were not expecting, and you need to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
And so
You got to be quick on your feet.
Absolutely. So doing improvisation, that really has helped me.
Right.
Like, I can pivot like no one's business when we're in trial. Right. To me, it's like, okay, this is my audience, right? And this is what we're about to put on for them,
And I imagine, doing things like improv, I mean, you probably had times where you had audiences that weren't very responsive, but you're still up there and you have to get over that fear. And
oh, yes. Like, they're not laughing and you're just up there like, I want to get off the stage, but it's only been 5 minutes and we have like 55 more minutes of the show to do.
And so in law school, that's when you decided, hey, I'm going to the DA's office, or?
So I actually worked in the clinic that the St. Mary's had,
in the
family law clinic, because again, I still was going to be doing divorces.
Right. I did the family law clinic while I was at St. Mary's.
It's actually a very good program.
Yes.
There is a lady who I got assigned to help, and she almost died. Her husband stabbed her, I think, 7 times. She had to be airlifted out, and she had this little angel on her. And at the end of the whole thing, she hands me the angel. She only spoke Spanish, and she told me, Veronica, this is my guardian angel, but I now know you are my guardian angel.
Wow, yeah.
And she gave it to me, right? And I keep it in my card to this day.
That's awesome.
To remember I'm here for the people.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so making that transition, from family law to criminal law, I've always told people, being a criminal defense attorney, people ask me, well, aren't you afraid of your clients, things like that. I think family law attorneys have probably more issues with their clients because things are much more heated. They're more emotional when you're in that family law court.
It really is. In family law, there's a lot of hatred and tension going on between people, and unfortunately, sometimes they use their children as pawns in this whole fight, right? And then you go to the criminal side, and I always say the criminals are a lot more respectful than on the civil side.
Absolutely. So your first experience with criminal law, was that as a prosecutor?
It was.
Okay.
It was. I was assigned to Judge Mary's court when he was in County
Judge
Court
Michael
12.
Mary.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was there for 19 months. And Ken Bell, my mock trial partner, was my actual trial partner.
Oh, wow.
So we worked really well together. I loved being a prosecutor. I was very good at it.
Okay.
Very good at it.
In Judge Mary's court, what kind of cases were you handling?
At that time, it was misdemeanors.
Sure.
DWIs, assaults, not family violence, but assaults. Anything having to do with Class B or Class A crimes.
And I imagine, being a misdemeanor prosecutor, you get a lot of trial experience here in Bexar County.
Well, especially in Judge Mary's court, we would try 1 to 2 trials a week.
Wow.
So before I even left the DA's office, I had over 100 jury trials to verdict.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you stayed at the DA's office for how long?
For approximately 4 years, maybe like 1 or 2 months.
While you were there during that 4 years, I imagine you didn't stay in Judge Mary's court the entire time.
No, I got promoted to the white collar unit, so I started doing felonies.
Now, talk about that, the white collar unit. What kind of criminal offenses go through that unit?
So we have all financial crimes go through there, the prosecution of child porn cases. That was a very rough one.
Yeah.
Those are very hard to prosecute, not because of you can't prove it, right? But more because it stays with you.
Absolutely.
Because those individuals on those videos, we don't know where those victims are. We don't know how they are now, where they saved. We just know that someone is distributing those videos.
The images.
Right, and so that's who we're prosecuting.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody last week, and I was telling them these cases, these abuse of children cases, the sex cases, whatever it is, they do take something out of you. I mean, it's hard to deal with that stuff day in and day out without it, taking a little bit home with you just because
Absolutely.
it's so shocking. You're seeing the worst of the worst.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, unfortunately, there are still images that are stuck in my head, right? And you can never unsee that. Right. But also in that unit, I also had to review the police shooting cases.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't, they bring me this big binder, all the evidence, so like, we need you to review this and tell us, do you think, it was a good shooting, bad shooting? So I was trained to do that.
That's a tough call.
That is a very tough call.
I imagine that can get a little political.
Yes, it can, and police are calling you because they want to give you, and I'm like, I really don't need any opinions right now. Let me read everything first, and then I will listen to everything before making a decision to recommend.
At what point did you decide, hey, the DA's office, I've learned a lot, but I think I'm ready to move on?
So while I was in the white collar unit, I was, real quickly, I was also, there's one law, environmental prosecutor, and it was me, right?
Okay. An environmental prosecutor.
Yeah, so
what
for
is
illegal
that?
dumping, when people leave tires everywhere.
Okay.
So I learned
Sure.
about that, and shortly after, do you remember the Barrios murders, or the murder of Miss Barrios?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
with the bow and arrow.
Yes. So I helped with that case.
Oh, okay.
I did the research
Interesting.
for it. I helped. And then shortly after that, I was like, I really want to be back in the courtroom. But in white collar, it's different. You're not assigned to a court, right? So at that time, I decided, okay, I think I'm going to try the other side now. And I stepped out and I started, the defense law firm.
Started your own practice?
I started my own practice.
That's a bold move.
People don't tell you how hard it is, right?
is.
A lot of defense attorneys, it's great, but they don't tell you that in the beginning it's not that great.
Yeah, it can be tough.
For a while I didn't have an office, and so I always laugh. I was the Lexus lawyer because I was working out of my car.
Right.
But then slowly you get court appointments and you start building your book of business and clients, and then it took off.
Well, and then you had that experience coming from the DA's office. You knew how cases got filed. You knew what prosecutors looked at, and you brought that to the table for your clients.
Absolutely. And then being bilingual, people are always looking for a Spanish-speaking attorney. And then I remember I helped this one lady. She told two friends who told two friends who told two friends.
Okay.
And so I stopped taking court appointments about 3-4 years ago.
Right. So how did your perspective change when you went from that role of being a prosecutor to now being a defense attorney? Like, what was there a change in your mindset? I mean, what did you notice?
It took a second. It took a second, right? Because I was trained to read these police reports and look for the crime, right? But when you actually become a defense attorney at that point, you're meeting the individual.
Yes.
And you learn
it's not just a name on a piece of paper.
It's not. And you meet this individual and you actually hear the backstory that you never hear as a prosecutor.
Right.
You meet the family, you meet the, the friends, you hear the whole, the abuela, los tíos, whatever, right? But you hear the whole story. And then at that moment, I was like, wow, I think I would have been a better prosecutor had I known that, known this aspect, the human aspect.
Right.
And I feel like that's lacking a lot right now.
Sure.
To know the human aspect.
Yeah.
And so you get invested in these cases. I mean, you get to know these people.
Absolutely.
And I try to do the best by them. Being a prosecutor helped because I could see, okay, the evidence is just not in our favor, right? I had this one client kept telling me that the drugs was Chinese candy. I was like, we all know it's not, right?
It's Chinese candy.
Yeah, it was Chinese candy. Okay, we all know it's not. But having the perspective of both helps me speak with my clients and explain the system, because lots of times people have no idea how the system works.
They do not.
They do not.
And that's kind of our job. Our job
Yes.
is always to kind of inform them of, hey, how this is how it works. And given that you have that perspective as, hey, I was a prosecutor. Like I used to prosecute these kind of cases. I know how this works.
Yes.
You have that.
Yes. And so it also helps, as we're going through hearings or trials, because I know exactly what to expect coming my way, and now as a defense attorney, I'm able to use that, because every time as a prosecutor, they always tell you, you're always ready. You're always ready. Right? Don't ever say you're not ready, right? Unless you're pushed really to trial. And so now, as a defense attorney, I'm like, I'm always ready too.
Sure.
Right? And you know why? Because I'm not the first person who has to speak. The prosecutor does. They
Right.
have to pick the jury first.
Right.
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 So
It's
I
their
have time.
case.
I have time to collect myself.
Right.
To get it done.
Right. And then you have that background, in improv to where, you're ready to go on the fly if need be.
Yes. And then in the criminal world, we live and die by the rules of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I learned that in family law. Not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much
No,
over
no.
there.
That's a different beast.
That's a
in and
different
of itself.
beast.
So we're up against our break. Time flies, but
Yes.
when we come back from the break, we're going to talk to Ms. Legarreta about her campaign for district attorney.
The attorneys at BRCK Criminal Defense have helped over 5,000 clients move on with their lives. When an arrest or accusation turns your life upside down, we have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to get your life back on track. Traditional legal ethics, modern legal tactics, the best defense possible to get you through the criminal justice system. Search BRCK Criminal Defense to see our reviews and find out why so many of our clients have trusted us to fight for them. BRCK Criminal Defense, helping our clients move on with their lives.
And we're back with Ms. Veronica Legarreta. She is a candidate for Bexar County District Attorney. So you're a defense attorney, but you also work as a city magistrate. Is
That's
that right?
correct. Yes, I do.
So just briefly, what does a city magistrate do?
So when an individual gets arrested, the very first person they see is the magistrate judge. We make sure they know their rights. We tell them the charges that they have, the range of punishment, give them some information, get some information from them. Nothing pertaining to the case because they do have a right to remain silent, but more of do they want a court-appointed attorney, things like that. And then they go on through the booking system.
You're kind of making sure their rights are protected.
Correct. And we also review the police reports to make sure there's probable cause to proceed with the case. And we also review blood warrants, arrest warrants, search warrants.
Sure.
We sign off on those.
So you've seen the system from the perspective of a prosecutor, from the perspective of a defense attorney, and from the perspective of a neutral magistrate. So how has that changed your view on the criminal justice system?
Oh, it has educated me so much, and it's changed the way I see everything, because when you initially get it, I have to say, did this officer follow the law or was something missing? And I have found that there are some instances, there was an officer who kept bringing me blood warrants, and just so people know what that is, when you get pulled over for a DWI, if you do not give a breath test, they can get a warrant to get your blood.
Right.
And something was off about it, right? He was just kept bringing them. And so finally I was like, bring me the police report. Let me see this. And he was a Spanish speaker. So I called the officer and I was like, do you speak Spanish? And he told me, enough.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, that's enough is not the law.
Right.
Right. And so I started paying a lot more attention to cases and how prosecutors were letting them slip by.
Right.
Right. Just basically signing off
Just
on a
signing
lot.
off. Yeah.
And I was very grateful to have that, and to still have the opportunity to review the cases and be like, no, this is not smelling, the sniff test, right? It's not going to pass here. And so I feel like I have the opportunity to actually do something to help.
Well, the thing about the criminal justice system is the system only works if everybody acts with integrity and does their job. Right?
Exactly.
If we're asleep at the wheel, then the system just doesn't work for people.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about situations where people could be deprived of their liberty, lose a job, whatever the case may be. So it's good to have people who are saying, no, I'm checking up on this just to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, and actually being a magistrate gave me an idea for one of the biggest things I have for my platform. During the time when I was working, because I worked the overnight shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.,
Okay.
they brought this older African-American lady in, and she was in a wheelchair. But I was reading the police report, and she was living in a nursing home, and her son decided, I can't afford it, she's going to live with me. But he sent an Uber to pick her up, okay? And, she's older, she's already on the onset of dementia.
Right.
She had no idea what was going on.
Right.
All she thought was they were trying to remove her from her home.
Right. She's
So
being
ins-
abducted.
So instead of helping her, they arrested her for criminal trespass.
Oh, Lord.
Right. And I read it and I said, absolutely not. Nope. Mm-mm. So they brought her into the courtroom and I sat down with her and I explained what was happening. I rejected the case and I was like, the officer's going to take you to your son's house right now, and he kind of looked at me and I was like, and you're going to call me when you get there. And at that point I realized there are some people with mental health issues, their family calls for help, right? And they never meant to create a criminal.
That's
they needed
right.
help.
That's right.
But the individual's going through their episode and, they start flailing or they're upset, they're angry, and they get arrested, right? And so they get booked into the county, and now you have a criminal. They're trying to work their way through the county
They've created
system.
a record because they've been
Correct.
booked. You know,
Correct.
now they're in the system.
They've lost whatever resources they've had because they have this criminal record. And I was like, why are we doing that? We don't need to do that. You know, we have nurses at the police station for the blood draw warrant, so why don't we make sure that their mental health certifications, that they have them? You know, we also do a 6-hour hold for people who are drunk to sober up, and then we release them. So let's do a 6-hour mental health hold, right? Let's do a true assessment, see if they just need to get back on meds, give resources to the family, and then release the individual back to their family.
Well, and you said this is a big part of your platform, so let's talk about that.
Sure.
You're running for Bexar County District Attorney's office.
Yes, I am.
Why did you decide to do that?
You know, being in the courtroom, for anybody who watches football, you know, you see a team, right? Your team, and you're like, what are you doing? Get the ball and run.
I'm a Cowboys fan, so I do that all the time.
Okay. Well, I'm a Longhorn fan, so this season has been rough on me. But I felt that way watching the prosecutors.
Okay.
Right? They were stumbling, and you could see that they really wanted to do what was right, but they were scared of what their supervisors were going to say.
Right.
I don't believe that justice exists anymore in the Bexar County courthouse. Every once in a while you see it with a just verdict or when the defense and the prosecutor come together and work a case out for what's right by the case.
Okay.
But it's just not a safe place for justice to live. And so I decided, I was like, I want to help. I want to make changes to bring justice back. I want to make changes to make sure we have a balanced system, not just convictions, not just, you know, dismissals because we don't have enough manpower.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, my former co-host, Scott Simpson, was always fond of saying that Texas is unique in that in Texas, a prosecutor's role is to see that justice is done, not to merely seek justice, but to see that justice is done.
Correct.
And so, you know, that's, as a DA, that would be one of the obligations that you would be imposing on the other prosecutors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to make sure that justice is done, not that we're just trying to win a case. If the case merits a dismissal, so be it. I want to make sure that the prosecutors know, hey, if you can back up your decision for this case, I have your back.
Okay.
Right? I don't want them to feel they're being micromanaged. I don't want them to feel like they can't do what's right by the case.
Right.
And that's what's happening right now.
And so you've had a series of debates where they've asked you some policy questions, and
Yes.
they've only given you a minute to respond. Are there any policies that you'd like to discuss or that people need to know your positions on? Or?
Oh, absolutely. You know, family violence has always been a big topic.
Okay.
And the victims are not being contacted. You know, I had an individual who, she was choked by the father of her baby, and he picked up charges. One unit, the family justice center, you know, they issued a protective order, but yet the family violence unit dismissed his case.
Okay.
Without telling her, they told her she was, you know, you seem to be unstable. We think the defense attorney is going to tear you apart.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I really think that we need some sensitivity training on how to speak with victims.
Sure.
You know, and just because you think the case is hard does not mean you need to dismiss it.
Well,
right?
and just so people know, a lot of people who watch podcasts aren't attorneys or in the legal field. A family violence protective order is a quasi-civil criminal type of order, but it's not a conviction.
Correct.
It's just something that says you have to stay away from this person for a finite period of time. You know, a temporary order, it could be 90 days or whatever the case may be. More permanent order, it could be 2 years. But it's not a conviction. It doesn't
Correct.
lock this person up.
Correct.
They're still in the community.
Right. It could be for also a lifetime, right? Which is why I also think being a civil attorney is so important because there are civil aspects that people don't know exist, right?
Well, there's a civil section at the DA's office.
There is a whole civil section that gets overlooked, right? Except right now, right? They're in the news for mess ups. But there's 13 divisions right now, right? But all we've ever spoken about in debates is the family violence unit. You know, and one of the things I've pointed out in the debate is being a magistrate judge, I have learned that, you know, you could be in a fight with your husband, your wife, your kid, a partner, and a neighbor calls and the police show up.
Sure.
And it turns out the policy is like, if we get called out there, someone's getting arrested.
Right.
Right? And the victim's like, I'm not a victim. I'm not going to help you. Don't take pictures of me.
Right.
But the person still gets arrested, booked, and becomes a criminal.
Right.
So what I'm proposing to do is in those cases where the victim's just like, no, let's reject that case for further investigation, then reach out to the victim and see what really happened and if that's really what they want to do.
Okay.
Right? Because right now we are having such a huge amount of family violence cases being dismissed, or the defense, I mean, they're just rolling over the prosecutors with not guilties because they're forcing cases where you have a victim who's like, look, I'm not a victim, right?
That's what can make the family violence cases tough. You know, we've discussed that before, is that, and being on the defense side, I've seen this side of it where I have the complaining witness or the victim who says, look, we went out last night, we had a little too much to drink, we got home, we started yelling at each other. Neighbor called 911. My husband got arrested. He's going to lose his job.
Yep.
We're, going to get behind on our mortgage. Either there's a protective order in place or there's a bond condition that says he can't come home. I don't know what to do. We have the kids. They're very complicated and difficult cases for that reason.
They are. And we need to go ahead and actually take the time to figure out which ones we prosecute and which ones we don't.
Which people are actually in danger.
In danger, and which ones, maybe are truly a misunderstanding.
Right.
Another thing I've learned is that a lot of police officers, they've come to me and they go, I feel like a lamb being sent to slaughter in trial. The prosecutors are ill-equipped. They're not properly trained, not only in trial, but in criminal law and evidence.
Okay.
Right? And so what I would like to do is have a training police officers and prosecutors at the same time. So we're all on the same page.
Right.
What does a police report need? What are the elements? What do
so do they not have that right now? They don't have somebody from the DA's office going down to like SAPD or Bexar County Sheriff
They
and
used
saying,
to.
Okay.
They used to.
Okay.
Some people said, well, we should have a prosecutor at every substation. We can't even have enough prosecutors to have in courtrooms. So we cannot do that.
There's a shortage as it is.
Right? We could not do that.
Right.
But if we have training with both, not only for how to do the police report, but also how to present evidence, that would be better. And also to have what we used to have when I was back in the district attorney's office was the prosecutor of the week, right? Where the police could call that prosecutor and say, I have questions.
Sure.
So let's have that, right? And not to mention, we do have prosecutors at the magistrate, at the auxiliary jail and Bexar County. So if overnight they have questions, just go in and talk to them. They're there. Another thing I'd really like to do is start a part-time program for the intake section. We have attorneys who are first-time parents, right? And they can't work 40 hours a week, but they want to work.
Right.
We also have attorneys who want to retire, but they still need some source of income.
They kind of want to wind it down.
Yes.
Right.
So let's go ahead and take their strengths and their knowledge, and let's put it in a part-time program to help the intake for misdemeanors.
Oh, interesting.
And so this way, we're moving the cases quicker.
Right. Being a little more flexible in terms of that may address some of those those backlog or shortage issues.
Yeah, because you can take 10 full-time prosecutor spots and turn it into 20 part-time. Right. And so here you go, you're creating more jobs,
right.
And you're moving the cases quicker than they are now.
And you're freeing up your full-time prosecutors to get to the courts.
And to also work on the more serious cases where maybe we need, testing or DNA or following up with, murders, capital murders, aggravated assaults, felony cases. Where the misdemeanors, the thefts from HEB, we can have our part-time prosecutors take care of that.
Right. So if people want to learn more about you and kind of your positions, how do they do that?
Well, they can go to my website,
okay.
voteveronica.com.
Okay. Now, is it the number 4?
Vote Veronica.
Just Vote Veronica.
Vote Veronica.
Okay.
Yes.
That's never been taken before?
No,
wow,
surprisingly.
that's awesome.
Yeah, you would think it would, right? But I was very surprised, but we jumped on that, so we took it.
Good.
4 is very important because I'm number 4 on the ballot.
Okay.
So I like to say Veronica for DA, Veronica for Justice, and Veronica for you.
Okay. So it's voteveronica.com.
Correct.
And then do you have any kind of social media, anything?
We do. We have Facebook and we have an Instagram. That one's a little bit longer because Vote Veronica was taken for those.
Okay.
But it's Veronica Legarreta for DA.
Okay. And so you are on the Democratic ballot.
I am,
And we're
yes.
currently in early voting.
We are.
So if you've liked what you've heard today, she is number 4 on the ballot. When is the actual date for the primary? It's
March 3rd.
March 3rd. Okay.
Yeah, so today and tomorrow
Are the last
early.
days.
Yeah, are the last days for early voting, and then Tuesday's the big day. So come on out. You will see someone in one of my shirts, the white shirt that says Veronica Legarreta for District Attorney. They have all the information on me. They will even call me from the polls if you have questions, and I will talk to voters
that's awesome.
and answer whatever question they have.
So as far as you're aware, are you the only candidate on the ticket who has been a judge, a prosecutor, and a defense attorney?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate Ms. Legarreta coming on. You've heard her experience. And again, that's voteveronica.com. She's number 4 on the ballot. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
So you got arrested.
I actually really enjoyed my time here with you.
Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Well, I may just show up. So
Okay.
be careful what you say.
All right. Thank you for listening. This is So You Got Arrested.
Thanks for listening to So You Got Arrested. If you found this podcast helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more legal insights and real talk from the front lines of the Texas justice system, follow us and subscribe. And remember, BRCK Criminal Defense has your back. For more information, visit us at brckdefense.com.